And we start right away with exclusive material. Crimea has trembled once again. Ukrainian scouts are doing their job. In a minute, we will show you unique footage of the destruction of Russian landing boats, as well as the Tor in M2 air defense system. Meanwhile, is the Belgorod region also preparing to welcome the armed forces of Ukraine? Ukrainian military forces have broken through the first line of enemy defense in the Belgorod region and have advanced 3 to 4 kilometers deep. At least that's what the Western press is writing. But what about Putin? Is the Kremlin maniac really starting a new wave of mobilization? A record-breaking spring draft has begun in Russia. According to official information, they plan to mobilize 160,000 Russians. But you understand, this is just the tip of the iceberg. All the details in our report. Masterful work in destroying enemy equipment. Ukrainian scouts in Crimea destroyed 2 Russian landing craft and a Tor M2 anti-aircraft missile system using drones.
The high-speed transport and landing craft of Project Zero Sol 2510 BK-16 were hit. These boats are intended for Special Forces units during operations in the coastal maritime zone. In addition, a patrol boat of Project 03160 Raptor was also hit. This is a series of Russian high-speed patrol boats for the coastal zone. But it should also be noted that in addition to the boats, strikes were carried out on the Tor M2 anti-aircraft missile system of the Russian occupation forces. That is, we can say that the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine continues successful operations in the elimination of both the naval assets of the Black Sea Fleet of the Russian Federation and primarily the missile and air defense systems of the Russian occupiers in Crimea.
The Belgorod region also shuddered. There, Ukrainian aviation successfully struck military targets. According to the analysis by deep state analysts, the attacks were carried out in the areas of the settlements of Demidovka and Kondratovka. The General Staff has not yet commented on this information.
This concerns strikes on legitimate military targets on the territory of the Russian Federation. The strikes were carried out on the command and control points of the Russian occupation forces, minimizing the possibility of so-called horizontal connections and the organization of active defense.
Additionally, as a result of the drone attack, an ammunition depot of the occupiers, placed by Russian military in an uninhabited apartment building, was blown up. Meanwhile, terrorist Russia continues to strike civilian targets in Ukraine. The enemy once again attacked cities with kamikaze drones. A series of explosions occurred in Odessa, Zaporizhzhia, and Kharkiv.
But in Russia, the night was also restless. The Ministry of Defense of the country of murders reported 97 drones shot down overnight over the Kursk, Rostov, and Belgorod regions. Additionally, Ukrainian forces in the Belgorod region managed to advance 3 to 4 kilometers into enemy territory, breaking through the first line of defense of the Russian army. There is no official confirmation of the information from either the Russian or Ukrainian side yet.
In the Belgorod region, the so-called Surovikin lines have been breached, on which more than $200 million from the federal and local budgets were spent. In addition, the successful actions of the Ukrainian defense forces in the Belgorod region have significantly reduced the activity of Russian troops in the Kursk region. This involves the redeployment of operational reserves from the territory of the Kursk region, an area of active combat, directly to Belgorod. In addition, it should be noted that the Ukrainian defense forces have effectively blocked the possibility of transferring operational reserves of Russian troops from the operational tactical group Belgorod, which numbers up to 60,000 personnel.
And the cherry on top, the spring draft has begun in Russia, the largest in the last 14 years. The Kremlin dictator wants to send more than 160,000 people to fight in Ukraine. They will be drafting Russians aged 18 to 30 from April 1st, and this is no joke, until July 15th. Supposedly, these people are not going to be sent to war. But you all understand. However, Russia has fewer reserves and fewer people willing to fight. Therefore, in a few months, the Russian dictator might start another large-scale mobilization.
The Russian Federation is facing a shortage of personnel, both on the direct line of combat contact and during mobilization activities. There is objective control data indicating the coercive nature of mobilization activities, including in Moscow. This refers to the actual busing of Russian Federation citizens, where individuals of conscription age are forcibly detained and sent to military enlistment offices for further service in the armed forces of the occupying country.
Putin does not want peace. Most experts are saying this. Therefore, he needs as much new cannon fodder as possible.
Well, now it's time to analyze the operational situation. On the blazing Pokrovsky front, the enemy continues its signature military terror. In the Pokrovsky direction, the aggressors carried out 69 assault and offensive actions over the course of the day. The greatest activity of the Russian occupiers is in the areas of the settlements of Pantelemonivka, Sukhaya Balka, Shevchenko, Vodyen II, Yelizavetovka, Luch, Zelenoy, Novi Trud, Kotlino, Udachne, Kotlyarivka, Uspenivka, and Andriivka. The fighting has not subsided in 12 locations so far. Moreover, it was another hellish week for the Ukrainian city of Dnipro. The aggressor country's forces, Russia, struck Dnipro with shaheds, resulting in several fires and significant damage in the city. But the most terrifying thing is something else. As a result of this genocide of the Ukrainian people, more than 30 people were injured and 5 civilians were killed. And the very next day, the enemy struck Kryvyi Rih with ballistic missiles. The details of this horror are in the next report by TSN correspondent Anastasia Neverna.
Compared to Saturday morning, it's much cleaner here now. The debris has almost been cleared. Hundreds of broken windows have been covered with plastic and plywood.
We completely cleared this parking area, thoroughly boarded up all the windows, and repaired what we could.
Residents of the affected buildings admit they cannot forget what they went through. Shaheds flew one after another.
I heard it gliding, then such a loud crash. It's indescribable in words. I said, "Anya, cover your ears." She covered her ears. The only thing I could do was close my eyes tightly, that's all.
A Shahed hit directly on the roof of the building here, collapsing several upper floors. Olga was hiding in the bathroom while explosions were destroying her home.
If I had been in the kitchen, I would have definitely been hurt because the windows were blown out there and it's small.
On that hellish night, the glow from the fire was over the entire right bank of the Dnipro. Explosions were going off one after another. Simultaneously, fires were burning in 7 different places. A drone hit a well-known hotel and restaurant complex, which had been helping displaced people at the beginning of the war. The fire there was fought all night, but a significant part burned down. About a dozen private houses with blackened walls stand in the city center. The owner of this house died under its ruins. On the neighboring street, people survived, but they were left with nothing from their parental home, built almost 90 years ago. There are practically no walls left.
There was one hit on the house, one in the garage, and one over there, where the pit is. And the car started to burn, explode. In short, well, everything burned down.
Alexander and his wife managed to jump into the basement. This is what saved their lives.
By a miracle, look, just as I was saved. That's how it all is. No money, no documents, nothing.
Fedora's house also couldn't withstand the drone attack. The man has been on the front since the 22nd. He went through captivity, rejoined the army, and now the enemy has destroyed his childhood home.
I think it can no longer be repaired because the structures are all warped. You can see the roof in general.
Debris of enemy metal is scattered along the street.
Shahed engine right here. Here's the piston.
Almost all the windows were blown out in the apartment building next to the private sector. The glass and debris there have been almost completely cleared. But calming down still isn't possible.
We heard the first explosion.
We heard the first explosions and immediately gathered, went out into the hallway. But it was already very dangerous to go down. The windows were blown out, glass was scattered around. I hugged the child, dressed her so she would sit calmly, and that's it. That's how we sat in the hallway the whole time.
This attack claimed the lives of 4 people. Out of 28 injured, 8 remain in hospitals. 2 are in serious condition. Utility workers have finished clearing the debris, removing about 70 tons of construction waste. And a Ukrainian flag was installed at the destroyed restaurant.